Movement is visible everywhere except where it matters most. You watch others advance without noise, without announcement, and you feel the distance growing before you can name it. This is not because they are faster. It is because they are no longer waiting for permission from their own doubts. The discomfort you feel right now is not envy. It is awareness arriving late. The mind resists this realization because admitting stagnation threatens the story you have been telling yourself about patience, timing, and preparation. But time has a way of exposing what words protect. Machiavelli would never confuse stillness with strategy. He knew that power decays when it pauses too long under the illusion of control. What keeps you behind is not a lack of effort. It is the silent habit of internal negotiation. Every moment you hesitate, you rehearse a version of yourself that asks instead of assumes. That posture is readable. People sense it before you speak. Opportunity senses it before it arrives. While others move forward imperfectly, you refine your reasons for delay until they sound intelligent enough to believe. This is how stagnation disguises itself as thoughtfulness. The danger is not being wrong. The danger is becoming predictable to yourself. Pay attention to how progress actually happens around you. It is not loud. It does not announce intent. It does not seek validation. It shifts position quietly, then lets reality adjust. Those who move ahead understand something that remains uncomfortable for most. Momentum is not built by clarity. It is built by tolerance for tension. The ability to act while parts of the picture remain unresolved. The inability to do this creates a specific gravity that pulls everything back to the familiar. That gravity is what keeps you exactly where you are. There is a subtle hierarchy forming at all times. It does not reward potential. It rewards posture, how you occupy uncertainty, how long you wait before committing, how quickly you retreat into explanation when resistance appears. The ones moving forward are not braver. They are less concerned with protecting an identity that requires consistency. They allow contradiction. They allow friction. They allow temporary imbalance. Machiavelli would never protect an image at the cost of position. Image can be repaired. Position once lost is rarely returned without force. Notice how the idea of forward movement creates pressure in your chest. That pressure is not fear of failure. It is fear of exposure. Forward motion removes the excuses you have been storing. It forces measurement. It invites comparison. Remaining behind keeps everything theoretical. And theory is a comfortable shelter for unresolved ambition. But the shelter is shrinking. You can feel it. The distance between where you are and where others now stand is no longer abstract. It is visible, and visibility changes everything. What slows you is not lack of effort. It is misalignment between how you move and how time actually rewards movement. There is a quiet tax paid by those who confuse motion with progress. Busy days, full calendars, constant reaction, yet no shift in position. From the outside, it looks active. From the inside, it feels exhausting. That exhaustion is not from doing too much, it is from doing what does not compound. The world advances through leverage, not labor, and leverage only forms when actions stack instead of cancel each other out. Many never notice this because activity numbs the awareness. As long as something is happening, the mind assumes something is changing. It rarely is. This is where distance grows. Others step forward while you circle familiar ground. Mistaking repetition for stability, Machiavelli would never confuse noise for momentum. He understood that power moves quietly, often invisibly, while attention is distracted elsewhere. Look closely at how decisions are delayed in small ways. The hesitation before speaking, the extra consideration given to avoid friction, the preference for certainty over advantage. Each pause feels harmless. Together they form a pattern. Patterns harden into position. Position determines outcome long before effort enters the equation. Those moving ahead are not faster thinkers or braver souls. They simply resolved certain internal negotiations earlier and never reopened them. The cost of indecision compounds daily. Every time a choice is softened, diluted, postponed, reality recalibrates around that posture. You are not punished. You are categorized. Once categorized, the environment responds accordingly. Opportunities arrive shaped for someone else. Conversations shift tone. Expectations lower without announcement. None of this is personal. It is structural. Time aligns itself with those who do not require reassurance to proceed. There is also a subtle comfort in staying where you are. Familiar limits feel safer than unknown leverage. The mind calls this prudence. It is often fear wearing discipline as a disguise. The irony is that stagnation feels stable only until movement elsewhere creates contrast. Then the gap becomes visible and discomfort sharpens. By the time it is felt consciously, it has already existed for a while. Others did not leap ahead in a single moment. They stepped when you waited for clarity. They accepted temporary imbalance while you refined explanations. They allowed tension to exist without resolving it immediately. Over time, this rewired how the world met them. Forward motion rarely announces itself. It accumulates silently until the distance is undeniable. When you finally look up, it seems sudden. It was not. There is a quiet pattern that repeats every time you tell yourself you are waiting for the right moment. From the outside, it looks like patience. Internally, it feels like preparation. But structurally, it functions as a delay mechanism that protects you from exposure. The world keeps moving because movement is rewarded even when it is imperfect. Stillness, when disguised as thoughtfulness, is rarely questioned, which is why it becomes dangerous. Machiavelli would never confuse restraint with hesitation. One preserves power, the other leaks it away without resistance. Notice how progress around you no longer announces itself. People do not explain why they are ahead. They simply stop being available at the same frequency. Their priorities tighten, their responses shorten, access narrows. This is how hierarchy shifts in real time. Not through confrontation, but through withdrawal. When someone advances, they stop orbiting the same conversations. They exit patterns before others realize a pattern existed. If you feel left behind, it is not because you missed a single opportunity. It is because you stayed loyal to conditions that stopped rewarding loyalty. There is comfort in being almost ready, almost informed, almost confident. That state feels intelligent because it avoids error, but it also avoids leverage. Power is never built in the absence of friction. It is built by surviving moments where your position could have collapsed but did not. Those moments require exposure. They require being seen before certainty arrives. This is where most people freeze. They mistake clarity for safety and wait until clarity never comes. Meanwhile, those who move with partial information accumulate advantage simply by being present when the structure shifts. You may have noticed that effort alone has stopped changing how you are perceived. You work, you refine, yet the distance remains. This is because effort without positional risk does not alter hierarchy. It only maintains competence. Machiavelli would never invest energy without influence. Visibility without authority creates dependency, not respect. If you are contributing but not advancing, it is because your actions are legible without being consequential. The unsettling truth is that the world does not respond to intention. It responds to behavior under uncertainty. Others are not more certain than you. They are less attached to internal negotiation. They do not resolve fear. They move with it. That movement sends a signal preparation cannot replicate. Over time, those signals accumulate and shape reputation before results appear. If you feel stuck while everything else accelerates, it is not because you lack ability. It is because you learn to protect your self-image more than your position. Protection feels rational, but it keeps you static while the frame shifts. The distance you feel now was built incrementally each time movement was postponed in favor of comfort. There is a quiet moment when the realization settles in, not as panic, but as recognition. You notice that conversations have shifted without you. Opportunities circulate through rooms you no longer enter. Decisions are made faster, cleaner, without your input, and no one explains why. This is not dramatic exclusion. It is colder. You are not pushed out. You were left behind because nothing in your presence required others to slow down. Momentum favors those who create friction. Smooth objects are carried by the current, heavy ones redirect it. Progress does not reward intention. It rewards orientation. The world responds to those who move as if delay is unacceptable. Internal hesitation leaks outward in micro-behaviors that feel harmless. A pause before speaking, a softened tone where certainty should be. A need to justify what needs no explanation. These signals accumulate and form a profile. People begin to sense how much pressure you tolerate before retreating. Once that limit is known, it is respected by never being tested again. Those moving forward are not more capable. They are less negotiable. They do not enter rooms asking what is allowed. They observe, adjust, and claim space without announcing it. Machiavelli would never confuse aggression with force. He understood that leverage comes from predictability in direction, not emotion. The man who always advances reshapes the environment. The man who waits for alignment becomes a reference point, useful only as background. What keeps you stationary is not lack of effort. It is internal bargaining that never concludes. You replay scenarios. You refine explanations no one requested. You prepare versions of yourself meant to fit multiple outcomes. This flexibility feels intelligent, but it dissolves edge. The world does not advance around potential, it advances around presence. Presence requires being slightly misaligned, slightly misunderstood, slightly ahead of permission. Movement elsewhere begins to feel unfair. Others arrive sooner, decide faster, recover quicker. It looks like confidence, but it is simpler. They do not renegotiate their position each morning. They carry yesterday's posture forward. Consistency compounds. Doubt resets the clock. Every time you question readiness, the system moves on without waiting. Being left behind rarely feels dramatic. It feels calm. Too calm. A state where nothing collapses, but nothing accelerates. That calm is deceptive. It is the silence that follows relevance, the absence of resistance because no one is pushing against you anymore. When motion bypasses you consistently, it is not because you are unseen. It is because you are fully understood. And in that understanding, no adjustment is required. You keep telling yourself that nothing dramatic has happened, and that is exactly the problem. Stagnation never announces itself with collapse. It arrives quietly, disguised as stability. Days remain functional. Conversations stay polite. Effort continues just enough to feel responsible. But beneath the surface, something has shifted. While others advance through small, ruthless adjustments, you remain loyal to a version of yourself that once worked and no longer does. The world does not punish this immediately. It waits. That waiting convinces you that everything is fine. Progress is rarely about visible acceleration. It is about subtraction. Others remove behaviors, beliefs, and reflexes that no longer serve them, while you protect them out of habit. You defend old patterns because they feel familiar, not because they are effective. Familiarity creates the illusion of safety. Machiavelli would never confuse safety with strength. What feels comfortable often keeps a man predictable, and predictability is the easiest position to be overtaken from. Notice how often you explain delay to yourself using logic. You call it timing, preparation, patience. These words sound intelligent, but intelligence without leverage is decoration. While you refine explanations, others refine position. They move without announcing it. They change without justifying it. They allow friction to exist around them. You remove friction at every opportunity, smoothing edges, avoiding resistance, choosing paths that protect internal balance. The result is movement that looks active but goes nowhere. What separates those who advance from those who remain stuck is not ambition. It is tolerance for internal discomfort. Advancement requires moments where identity destabilizes, where old self-images crack under pressure. Most retreat at that point, mistaking psychological strain for danger. They return to behaviors that restore familiarity, even if those behaviors keep them stationary. Over time, a pattern forms. The same thoughts repeat. The same days blur. The same distance remains between intention and outcome. The most dangerous part is that no one will tell you this directly. People adjust expectations instead. They stop waiting for change from you. They stop imagining you differently. Not out of malice, but efficiency. Attention follows momentum. When momentum fades, attention moves elsewhere. This is how relevance erodes without conflict. You are not pushed aside, you are bypassed. Being left behind rarely feels like loss. It feels like neutrality. Neutrality is comfortable enough to survive in, but never powerful enough to dominate from. While others advance by narrowing focus and sharpening posture, you widen explanations and soften urgency. The gap grows quietly, and the longer it remains unchallenged, the more natural it begins to feel. The final realization arrives quietly, almost politely, which is why most people miss it. By the time you sense you are behind, the separation has already stabilized. Distance no longer feels dramatic. It feels normal, familiar. You wake up, move through your routines, consume the same information, repeat the same internal conversations, and nothing appears urgent enough to disrupt the pattern. That is the last stage. Not failure, not collapse, but normalization. Machiavelli would never fear resistance as much as he feared comfort, because comfort is the only state where power is surrendered willingly. What separates those who move forward from those who remain fixed is not intensity or effort. It is pressure tolerance. The ability to remain composed while uncertainty sharpens. The ability to let others advance without scrambling to follow. Stillness, when chosen deliberately, accumulates authority. Stillness, when imposed by hesitation, erodes it. From the outside, both look identical. From within, they are opposites. One is restraint. The other is delay, disguised as patience. At this stage, most people begin explaining their position to themselves in softer language. They reframe stagnation as timing. They label avoidance as discernment. They interpret the absence of results as preparation. None of this is conscious deception. It is psychological insulation, a way to protect identity from friction. Yet identity protected from friction never sharpens. It dulls, slowly, quietly, until movement elsewhere begins to feel personal, even threatening. The world does not wait for internal readiness. It responds only to visible posture, to patterns that signal inevitability. Those patterns are already forming around you, with or without your consent. The hierarchy you sense is not approaching. It is already set. Each day that passes without internal renegotiation strengthens the structure you will eventually be measured against. Not judged, measured. Measurement is colder than judgment. It offers no explanation, only placement. Here is what remains unsaid. Awareness alone changes nothing. Recognition without tension is entertainment. Insight without consequence becomes noise. The difference between those who stay behind and those who re-enter motion is not knowledge, but what they allow to remain unresolved inside them. Some close the discomfort as quickly as possible. Others let it stay, unsoftened, until it reshapes them. Machiavelli would never rush resolution. He understood that unresolved pressure is leverage. If this narration feels uncomfortably accurate, that is not coincidence. It means something is already watching your patterns more closely than you are. You can let this moment pass as information, or you can let it mark the point where observation turns inward and stops being passive. Most will move on, a few will remain here longer than is comfortable. Those few are the only ones this was ever for.